All right, here we go. Today we have a legend in the building, 9-time NBA All-Star, Hall of Famer, and a man who has his own statue, Dominique Wilkins. Welcome to VladTV.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on, bro.
Absolutely, man. Such a long-time fan. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, it's our first time together, so I want to start in the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So you were actually born in Paris.
Yeah, I was born in Sorbonne, France. That's outside of Paris. There's a military base.
Okay, and your dad was in the Air Force?
Army, actually.
Army.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how long did you stay in Paris before you moved to the States?
I lived in Paris my first 5 to 6 years of my life, and then we moved to Baltimore, Maryland. Actually, we moved to Texas and then Baltimore, Maryland. I actually grew up in Baltimore.
Okay, and I saw an interview that you did, and Baltimore, when you were there, I mean, it still is, but when you were there, it was extremely rough.
Oh, man. Baltimore, when I was there, they had the highest crime rate in America. I mean, it was a bad place. And growing up in the projects of O'Donnell Heights and Westport, and like if you see the movie The Wire, a lot of that's filmed from where I grew up. So don't even tell the full truth of all the stuff that goes on in Baltimore.
Okay, and what age did you actually start playing basketball?
I started playing basketball at 12. And it was a playground legend that saw something in me and said, hey, I want you to come to Boys Club every day. I'm going to teach you how to play the game of basketball, and you're going to owe me. And at 12, I didn't know what that meant. And it's the only thing I want from you is to give to someone else what I'm about to give to you. So he kind of gave me the courage to leave home when I was 16 to go to North Carolina. And that's where it all began for me.
Okay, you're talking about Big Harold.
Big Harold, yeah, you're good, man. Yeah, Big Harold, I mean, he was the playground legend in our neighborhood, and everybody respected him. And so I used to go around with him everywhere, and he really taught me the game of basketball, from mental standpoint, toughness. Because, growing up streets of Baltimore, you had to be tough to even get on the courts. Because if you didn't show some sort of toughness, you never got picked.
Okay, and I guess even at 12 years old, you knew you were going to go pro.
Yeah, and, growing up with 8 brothers and sisters, one parent, my mom taking care of all those kids by herself, I had to become the man of the house at a very early age. So I told my mom when I was 12 I was going to pros and I'm going to take care of her and she never had to work again. And, as a little kid, having a single parent, to give you one of those pats on the back said it's nice, but I meant it. So I worked from the time I was 12 to the time I was 18. I bought my mom my first home. And all the things I've ever accomplished in my life, that's the thing I'm most proud of.
Okay, so single parent, 8 kids, from the same father or different fathers?
Same father.
Okay, where was your dad?
Well, he came in the military. He was dealing with some issues, and just wasn't ready to cope with life, the way we saw it. And so he left at a very early age. We were still close to my dad, but he was gone for a long time before he saw him. I think I didn't see my dad for about 8 years, when I saw him again. So, but again, we couldn't sit back and, sulk and worry about it. Somebody had to step up for the family. And I was the oldest boy, so that was me.
I mean, I can't even imagine that. I grew up in an immigrant family, but I was the only child and my parents struggled. So I can't even imagine having one parent, 8 kids, trying to make it by, the dad not around. I mean, what do you think was the hardest part during that era?
Well, first of all, like these young guys say today, my mom was a G, for real. She was a tough lady. And people in the neighborhood looked after her because she took care of the whole neighborhood. She cooked for them. He had people that was in my life then was like brothers, like, sisters to me. My mom took care of everybody. And she fought hard for what she believed. She fought hard for her kids. But that was a tough neighborhood to grow up in because you had to be in almost a gang to go in from 100 block to the next. But because I played basketball, it was hands off through the neighborhood. It was nothing, hey, he's going to be the first one to get out of this neighborhood and none of you guys touch him. And that was the comfort that I had living in that neighborhood.
Okay, what age did you actually start dunking?
I started dunking 12 or 13 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because you're what, 6'8" now, right?
6'9".
6'9", my bad.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Cheat me
I
out
know
of
how
the
we
inch,
are
man.
about that extra inch, right? 6'9". for example, I interviewed Dennis Rodman recently. His growth spurt came at like 20. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When did your growth spurt start?
When I went to high school, I was 6'3". When I first went to high school, I grew 5 inches in 1 year.
Freshman year, you were 6'3"?
I was 6'3" my freshman year, and I went from 6'3" to 6'8.5" in 1 year. Yeah. So by the time 11th grade, my year came around, I was already over 6'8".
Okay, so you're living in Baltimore, and you described how rough of an area it was, but at one point you actually saw your friend get killed?
Yeah. Back in Baltimore, we used to do this thing called bus hopping. And basically, if you want to get to one area of town to the other, you hop on back of buses. And so we were on the back of the bus, and he slipped. And there's another bus coming behind us, and it ran over his stomach, and he ended up dying a day later. Yeah.
And you actually saw that?
Yeah. I was on the back of the bus, doing something probably we shouldn't have been doing, but everybody did it back then.
Okay, and you were how old at the time?
I was probably 13.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
What does that do to a 13-year-old to see their friend die, like right in front of them, essentially?
Well, that's traumatizing. It really is. That bothered me for a long, long, long time, many years. That bothered me because we were like brothers, and we did everything together. And it was just a misfortune. He slipped, and it was raining, and the bus in front of us, behind us, didn't see him to the last second.
Yeah.
And it was too late at that point.
Sorry if you're lost, man.
Oh, thanks, bro.
Yeah. Okay, so you're living in Baltimore, but then at 16, you moved to North Carolina?
Yes. I told my mom that, when I saw another one of my friends, he robbed somebody. And I told my mom, I said, I'm leaving the city, and I'm never coming back.
Okay,
and,
so your other friend got killed as well?
No, he didn't. He was robbing somebody else.
Oh, he was robbing people. Okay,
yeah,
got it.
And he really wasn't a close friend, but it was someone we knew in the neighborhood. I told my mom I was leaving. She said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to North Carolina. Hopefully I find a career in basketball. And I left a week later, and I got discovered on the playground the next day.
Okay, you're 16 years old,
mm-hmm.
right? You leave Baltimore by yourself, or did you go with somebody?
I left by myself, one bag on a Greyhound bus.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just trying to get my head around this. A 16-year-old gets on a bus who's not rich, by the way. It's not like you got $100,000 in your pocket.
What I was going to do.
Right.
Had no idea.
You're a poor kid.
Yeah.
You go to Washington, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. You're not in Raleigh or one of the big cities, and you're just what, by yourself?
Well,
homeless.
My mom and my dad, their family, was from Washington, North Carolina. Okay. And so I knew people, but I didn't know who I was going to live with. So I see these kids as I get off the bus, they were playing basketball. So I went over there and asked them, could I play? I started playing with them. So after we finished, I'm sitting on the ground, and this older gentleman walks. He said, you live here? I said, I'm not sure yet. He looked at me, he said, well, where you going? You live here? I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure yet. And he looked at me, he said, come walk with me. And I don't know why I followed him. And he took me to his house. He showed me a bedroom, showed me a kitchen. He said, you can have all of this. Only trade-off is you have to play for my team. He was the high school coach. And I remember looking at him, I was like, okay. And that high school team ended up going 76-1 in 3 years in North Carolina.
Oh, yeah, you guys were killing it.
Oh, yeah,
we couldn't be killing it in high school. Yeah.
And the crazy thing about 4 to 5 starters were first cousins on that high school team.
Really?
It was crazy. Yeah.
Okay. And then things started taking off. You actually were featured in Sports Illustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And you made the McDonald's All-American game. Now, who were some of the big players during that year? Was Magic Johnson part of that?
That year, it was 1979. And it's just about 5 years ago, we was rated as the greatest high school senior class ever. Because that senior class had over 9 or 10 Hall of Famers come out of that class. I was on, McDonald's team with me, James Worthy, Isaiah Thomas, Ralph Sampson, Sam Bowie, Clark Kellogg. Just to name a few, Byron Scott, Paxson. I mean, I can go down the line, all the guys who were that year who was McDonald's All-American. We had 24 guys that was the top 24 in the country. All 24 played in the NBA. All 24 guys.
All 24 played in the
mm-hmm.
NBA. Right. I mean, because generally, if you play in the McDonald's All-American, it pretty much assured a spot in the NBA later on.
Yeah, especially back then. Back then more so because, if you made the McDonald's game, you was considered the greatest players in the country. Mm-hmm. And it was hard to make the McDonald's game back in those days. So if you made it, you were pretty much going to get a shot to play in the pros.
Okay, so you get to the end of your high school career, and then it's time to apply for colleges. Now, in North Carolina, most people expect you to stay in the North Carolina ACC system, right? But you decide to go to Georgia instead.
Well, I would tell you this, in the 70s, if you were a great player in the state of North Carolina, you don't leave the ACC. That was almost against the law. You don't leave the ACC. And I was the first one to buck the system. I actually signed a letter of intent with North Carolina State. But at the last minute, I changed my mind because they were comparing me to be the next David Thompson and all this, and I didn't want to be compared to well, that's part of it. But Georgia it was just the right placement because I went there with 5 other high school All-Americans, so we all went at the same time. So it wasn't like I went there by myself. But once I made that decision, all hell broke loose in the state of North Carolina. I got F's on my transcript, paint poured on my car, windows busted out of the house, theft threats, and a cross burning in my front yard.
Okay. And I was going to ask you about this part. Here you are, you're an 18-year-old kid, and you're minding your business, you're in your living room, and suddenly you see this huge light outside your window.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And as you open the curtain, it's a burning cross.
I didn't even open the curtain. I was like, I'm puzzled. Like, what is this big bright light? So I go out the front door, and as I get to the front yard, there's a big cross burning in my yard. And I remember being very nervous and scared to being very angry, to the point where, anything could have happened if anybody showed up at my front door. I was very upset and angry about that because I've never seen that. Coming out of Baltimore, you don't see stuff like that. But it was the South, so nothing ever surprised you in the South, especially in those days.
Right, this was 1979?
1979. Hey, we had white prom and a black prom during that time.
Wait. You didn't have integrated proms during that time?
Only thing that was integrated was sports. That was it. But social issues, events like stuff like that, didn't interact. And again, it was puzzled me because I didn't go to my prom. I said, we're going to have to go to our prom in the recreation center. And the whites went to their prom at the high school. So it was a rough time.
I mean, apart from that incident with the cross burning, and I think your mom's car got painted black and the windows got busted out. Yeah. I mean, aside from when you announced that you're not going to be staying in North Carolina, what do you think was the most racist thing that you encountered during that time in North Carolina?
It was 2 things. One was the cross, which you can't get no more racist than that.
Yeah.
The other thing, I remember coming out of a department store, and someone followed me out and said, hey, a security guy, he said, we're going to have to arrest you because you stole this tape. And they had threw a tape in a planter right next to the store, front entrance. And it was crazy because I'm looking at them. I'm like, I had $3,000 in my pocket then. I said, I'm going to steal a $5 tape. Are you kidding? But I knew what it was. It's because of the decision I made. So my cousin, who was on the police force, he was the one who they called. And so when he picked me up, he said, look, we're going to take you to the police station. We're going to sort all of this out because we know what's going on. And I said, okay. He didn't put me in handcuffs or anything like that. Then he said, you know what? We're not going to do that. We're going to take you home. We're going to pack up everything. And we're going to get you guys out of town tonight. So we packed up my whole family in a truck at a station wagon. We left to Atlanta that night. And I never went back until my statue was unveiled.
Yeah, 30 years later was the first time you actually went back to North Carolina. So that's crazy. So if your cousin wasn't the cop that got called, let's just say like one of the racist white cops got called that day, you could have potentially gotten arrested and God knows what would happen.
It could have
next.
ended up worse. It could have ended up worse. But lucky for me that if a lot of the people that was around that town, especially the people that I was closest to, they all knew. They all knew what was going on. And hey, I even had some relatives that didn't like that decision. Got in fights, family got in fights, But, my brothers was the type of guys, they embraced that though. They those guys were itching for a fight. So for them, they was right in their backyard. But I was trying to get out of that environment, and so we moved. The whole family moved to Atlanta.
Was Atlanta? I mean, it's still the South, but it's a different kind of South.
Yeah.
So when you moved over there, was it a big difference in terms of how you related to other people?
When I moved to Atlanta, it was like I could breathe again. Because I went through a long time, months of that turmoil in North Carolina. And it was because of the University of Georgia. University of Georgia took care of me and my whole family. They moved us out of North Carolina. My family ended up living in Atlanta so I could go back and forth. So to this day, man, can anybody say anything bad to about Georgia to me? Because they got me out of a really bad situation.
Okay, so now you're playing for the Bulldogs. You averaged 21.6 points a game throughout your career over there. And you decided to leave your junior year. Was there a reason why you didn't stay one more year and graduate and get your degree? Or were you like, okay, I just got to go to the NBA?
Tell the truth, I almost left after my sophomore year because I would have been the number one pick going to Detroit. But when I decided to stay in, Isaiah Thomas came out and he was the number one pick to Detroit. So I just wanted to play one more years with these guys because I knew that we had a shot to win it all. And we came close until I got hurt. I got hurt in that year. And so we lost too many close games when I was out. But when I left the University of Georgia, they went to the Final Four the very next season. I knew they were going to be good coming back, and I wanted to stay, but it was time to go.
Yeah. Okay, so 1982, you went to the NBA draft, and you actually get picked by the Utah Jazz.
Yeah. I did not want to go to Utah at that time when I got picked. I wanted to stay in Atlanta, living in Atlanta, going to school down the road in Athens. I wanted to play for the Hawks. I had no idea I was going to be playing with them all the years I played. But it took a couple of elements to make that happen. First of all, I used to travel around with Magic Johnson, and we used to take all the top guys in the NBA. We play summer ball all over the country. So I think that got the ball rolling, just playing with Magic. And so I never went to Utah, never visited. So I was traded not too long after that.
Right. You got traded for John Drew, Freeman Williams, and $1 million in cash, which is considered one of the most lopsided deals in NBA history.
Probably was.
At this point.
It probably was.
Right, because Drew and Williams played a combined 4 seasons for the Jazz.
You look at that, you say, wow, if we'd have stayed there, what would have happened? Because you get Karl Malone, John Stockton, could have been a pretty serious team. But if I had to go back and do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. Because I played where I wanted to play, and that was in Atlanta.
Okay, so now you're playing in Atlanta. Your first game against Larry Bird. You go up to shake his hand because you're a fan. Yeah. And what happens next?
It was shocking, and I'm a rookie, and I go up against, we small forwards because guys guarded each other back in our area. You couldn't duck each other. And so I go shake his hand, and he put both hands behind his back. And I'm saying, okay, he's getting his head ready to play. And first play of the game, he says, I don't know where they got you guarding me, Holmes. And he shoots a 3. I was pissed. I said, I wasn't mad he hit the 3, but this some bitch just called me Holmes, And so it set up for a really interesting game. Because I remember one time I came down and I dunked it on him. He laying on the ground. He fouled me, and I'm pointing. And he said, hey, Rook. I said, what? He said, what? He said, I like you. You got, he said, you got balls, but I'm still going to get 30 on your ass. He got about 38, but I had to pay my dues. I wasn't upset about that because, back then, as a rookie, you got to pay your dues. Simple as that.
Well, yeah, I interviewed Gary Payton, who's a venomous trash talker in his own regard.
Yeah.
And I asked him who the most vicious trash talker he's ever encountered. He said Larry Bird.
Oh, no question. One thing about Larry knew who he could get to. He knew. And, my first year when he said that was the last time he ever said anything like that to me. Because one thing he knew is that I was going to keep coming no matter what. And so we had a mutual respect. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Larry. And I wouldn't take back the years I competed against him, man. What a unbelievable player. But he backed up whatever he said. If he tell you going to hit a shot to a certain place, or if he going to take you down to the post, turn around, hit a fadeaway J, he going to do just that, and ain't nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, that's what Gary was saying. That not only would he trash talk to you, but he would tell you exactly what he was about to do to you and actually do that to you. Well, as much of a trash talker as you are, you actually said there's someone who's actually greater than you. And that is Larry Bird.
Absolutely.
Or you said that not only would he talk shit to you, but he would tell you what he's going to do to you on the court. He's like, I'm going to shoot this from here. Boom. Oh, now I'm going to I'm going to bust your ass here. Larry Bird, of all people, you would think. But he was the truth.
He was, let me tell you something. People always talk about great basketball players, and they don't never mention him to be up in that round when they made the Magics, the Jordans, the Kobe's and stuff like that. But Larry Bird was cold. Mm-hmm. I don't think nobody ever could get out with him. You ask Magic. That's why Magic had a run, and he was mad when he had to retire in 92 because of what he was going to be missing with Larry Bird. Mm-hmm. And then you remember Larry Bird took 2 more years, and then he quit because he said his main guy who he wanted to play against is gone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, they had video games, Magic versus Bird. That was the big rivalry.
You remember when Magic went to Larry Bird's town and they made the Pepsi, what was it, Pepsi commercial or something like that? Yeah. And they did all of that. Man, Larry Bird would shoot it anywhere. If you think about how many times he won a championship and what he was doing and what he was averaging, people don't understand. They was like, oh, he was slow. He wasn't, he was just smart. You know what I'm saying? He was smart and he can get it. He can get it done. He wasn't MVP all them times and all the All-Stars all them times for nothing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he would get insulted if a player switches on him. And if he's a good player, decent player, and if he switch on Larry said, I'm insulted that they would put a sorry dude like you on me. He said, no, I don't even want to play no more. He would drop the ball and take a turnover. And I'm looking at this guy like, he's nuts, But he'll come back the next 6, 7 plays and just embarrass you.
Well, I had Dennis Rodman on recently. And when I brought up Larry Bird, he said that if Bird was playing today, he'd be playing in Europe.
Okay, I'll put it this way. If Larry Bird played in this era, I think he'd be in Europe. His game was fit for Boston at that time in the 80s and stuff like that, But today's world, oh, hell no. There's no way. I'm not downplaying him because he's a great player at that time, just like I was. And but I'm saying no, there's no way. No way.
I respect Dennis. A lot of respect Dennis. No, Dennis was he's a good dude, but that's delusional. Delusional. Larry Bird could play in any era and do the same thing he did in our era. It couldn't handle him. Today's players could not handle him, period.
J.J. Redick made some comments also about Bird. He said he isn't a top 5 shooter, and he also didn't have the physicality that you have today, and you responded to that.
He's stupid. I mean, it's a stupid comment because Larry Bird played in the most physical era ever. He's 6'10", almost 6'11", and he was physical himself. To say that he wouldn't be able to play in this league because this league too physical, like, what league you watching? Physicality is gone. It's not like it was back then. And it's nobody's fault. It's just times change. And for J.J. Redick to say stuff like this, the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. And for me, I'm like this, like you guys speak your opinion, I'm going to speak my opinion. And I think it's very stupid and selfish of you to even make a comment like that. It's crazy. And if you throw enough crap on the wall, a lot of it going to stick.
I mean, do you think it's the white boy thing? You think that just him being white, he doesn't get the respect?
I don't care what color he is. He can be blue. That's a bad man, period. Larry Bird. I tell you what, you ask any guy who played against him, I mean, guys with their right frame of mind, they're going to tell you something totally different than what some of these guys, trying to get their likes and and trying to get their social media likes up and all that stuff. That's all it's about. Because if you knew the game from the inside out, and as a player, you would never say nothing stupid as that.
Okay, so 1984, that was the first time you entered the slam dunk contest.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's very interesting when you look at the slam dunk contest back then and now. Because back then, all the top players would enter the slam dunk contest. These days, I mean, you never see a top player. I mean, when you look at the best dunkers in the NBA today, Ja Morant, Zion, Giannis, even LeBron, Russell Westbrook, none of them enter at all.
I think the problem is that I don't think anybody want to know who the best is. I mean, we could come up with different things that try to make you figure out why they don't want to do it. But we wanted to know who the best was. When Michael and I went head up, we wanted to know who the best was. And it really wasn't about us. It was about the fans. You know, we did it for the fans. We didn't do it for us. And some of these great athletes and dunkers that you see during the regular season and don't get in the dunk contest, I think a lot of times they feel like it's going to mess with their legacy. And it's not. The fact that they're talking about Jordan and my slam dunk contest 4 years later, it lets you know it's the greatest dunk contest ever because they're still talking about it. And there's still people ask me every day, you know you won, don't you? Who you think won? Michael, and the fact that people ask you those questions, 34 years removed, it's pretty amazing.
Well, let's talk about your first slam dunk contest. This was in '84. So you finished third behind Larry Nance and Julius Erving.
I'm going to tell you something about that dunk contest, though.
Okay.
I wasn't really into it because I'm watching my idol go head-to-head, with the best dunkers in the league, and that's Dr. J. And so my head wasn't even really into really competing. I competed, but not to the level I did the following year because I got over the awe of watching Dr. J. And Larry Nance, too, and people, they don't even talk about this guy. He was a pretty amazing high flyer. But I knew next season, going into that next contest, I wasn't going in to compete. I was going in to win. Because now I'm out in awe of all the other greats that was in the contest.
Well, that year you lost to your teammate, Spud Webb, who was only 5'6".
Yeah. He lied to me. I didn't know he could do some of the stuff he did. No, but you know what, though? I was really happy for Spud. Did I win that contest? Yeah, probably. But I was more happy for him than me because we were best friends. And so I was happy to see him win it.
Right. Because what would be the last major player that really entered the dunk contest? Kobe entered in, what year was it? 97. Vince Carter entered in 2000. And since then, it's been not the very top tier players. There's been good players, but not on a Kobe or a Vince level.
No, it hasn't been anybody on that level in the dunk contest since. And again, maybe they got so much stuff going on All-Star Weekend, or they just don't want to know who the best is. But one guy I will say has put on a great show and got more 50s in the dunk contest than anybody to never win, and that was Gordon. So him, I can see why he don't want to get it anymore because you can't put up more 50s than that and not get a win. We're still trying to figure that one out.
When you look at the current roster right now in the NBA, who do you think would win the dunk contest if they entered right now?
If he entered right now?
Yeah.
I'm going to put Ja Morant up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. As an OG, when you see Ja Morant's issues with he's now suspended for 25 games.
I know Ja and his dad very well. The thing, if I could give him anything, is that you don't need all these people around to validate who you are. You got to be able to stand on your own 2 feet because I don't know no friend I got I'm willing to give up $70 million for to be down. I don't understand that because you fight so hard to get out of that mentality, to do something bigger than yourself and to, do some of the things that he's done, this year, it just don't make sense. And you put yourself at risk because if you lose everything, watch how many people that's going to be around him.
Yeah.
Your friends going to be few and far between.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then 1985 rolls around, and that's when you really hit your stride. What was it like to really kind of be talked, about with the rest of the elite players at that point, being, 2 years in?
I was taught by a lot of really cool veterans when I came into the NBA. I had Dan Roundfeld, I had Tree Rollins, and Armand Hill, and all these kind of guys, Rudy Macklin, guys who kind of took me under their wing and taught me how to be a professional. And I think that's why I elevated so quickly in the league, because I had great veterans around me that wasn't going to let me do anything I wanted to do. They were the guys that showed me how to do it and what not to do. So they made me grow as a young man quicker. Because my coach always told me something. He said, if I can teach you how to be a young man, teaching you the game of basketball is easy. And that's what my whole approach, when I went through high school, college to pros.
Well, you guys get to the playoffs that year. You sweep the Pistons, and then you guys play the Celtics.
Yeah.
What happens then?
We had a great team. We really did. And we blew our opportunity with the Celtics in Game 6. We should have won that series in 6 games. Tough shot at the end of the game that got the win for them. And Bird at the end of that game made a bold prediction to the press, said, Atlanta blew their opportunity. I'm guaranteeing a win in Boston. And I remember seeing that article, and I remember we in Boston, we coming out of the locker room, and I stopped, and I said to my teammates, I said, we're going to win this bleep game. If you ain't ready to fight, you ain't ready to go to war, don't come out. I said, whoever go into me tonight going to have a long night. Unfortunately, Larry Bird was telling his teammates the same thing down the other end. But it's set up for one of the greatest shootouts in the history of a 7th game. And I just never seen anybody hit shots like that down the stretch of a game. And we went shot for shot, so it came down really to the last basket, who was going to win that series. And I remember he said it, I was taking the ball out of bounds. He said, we both deserve to win this game, but unfortunately, one of us got to go home. That's the biggest respect I think you can get from any great player, especially under those circumstances. You're fighting to win Game 7.
Well, in 86, on December 10th, you guys played the Bulls. You scored 57 points against the Bulls with Jordan on it. Were you just in your bag at that point? How did that feel?
I was hot. I was a little hot that game. And so was he. He had 42 in that same game. And between us, we had 98 points between us in that game by 2 guys. So we were going at it. And I didn't even play the last 8 minutes of the game. That's how hot I was. I didn't even play the last 8 minutes. We were up 30, I think, at that time. And so both of us, we was done for the night. And I didn't realize what we both had done in that game. And you won't see anybody to score consistently throughout a game the way Mike did every night. It wasn't just in that game. Every night it was like that.
Well, right, because later that year, you guys were in St. Louis under the St. Louis Arch, and a pickup game started, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. What triggered this game?
Well, we play summer basketball all the time. We played games all around the country. So St. Louis was one of those destinations that when we would go to those little towns like that, we would sell it out. And when I say we would go all out, and pick up games 3-on-3, 2-on-2s and stuff like that. But we have fun doing it, and that's where it starts. It starts on the playground, man. And so we just took it to another level.
Right, but you actually nutmegged Jordan in that game. Like, I watched the video this morning.
That particular game was more just about fun and for the fans. It was a 3-on-3 pickup game. Yeah, we played a little serious now, don't get me wrong, but it was more for them than for us.
Well, that next year in 87, before a game with the Bulls, Michael actually walked into your locker room.
I think it was because the game I had previously. So we are in Chicago. Michael walks into our locker room in suit and tie, and I'm like, what this son of a gun coming to our locker room for? I'm thinking he's going to the training room or something. And he walks by me. He walks by Kevin Willis. He gets to Randy with me. He taps him on his leg. He said, lace him up. It's going to be a long night. And I'm shocked. I didn't know what to say. So he's walking out. And again, I didn't know what to say. And I just yelled something. I said, well, you tell that son of a bitch Scottie Pippen, I'm going to kick his ass. I didn't know what to say. He had 60 that night.
Right. He actually dropped 61 points that night. I
Yeah,
looked it up.
60. Well, anyway, it was over 60 when he got that night. But man, and I think we ended up winning that game, I believe. Anyway, he had 60 tonight, but it was a heck of a game.
Well, right. When it was all said and done, you against Jordan, you guys each averaged around 30 points a game against each other.
For a whole
Yeah,
career.
in terms of your career. I mean, the rivalry. I mean, because Jordan is obscenely competitive, right? Like if he bets a janitor $5 on a dice game, he expects that $5 from the janitor.
Oh, he competes at everything. I don't care what it is. I mean, it could be on the golf course, anywhere. You know, drinking a glass of water, it don't matter. Who can drink it the fastest? He's going to bet on it. He's so competitive that way. But that's what makes him so great, because his willingness to not accept losing. And there's only very few in this game to ever do that. You know, you got to go back to a Bill Russell when you think about guys who are consistent like that. You know, which a lot of times people don't mention how great a winner he was. And so, but it comes from guys like that. You know, because Jordan often talk about, along with myself, we always talk about the guys before us, what we've learned from them, and he's one of those guys. Him and Chamberlain and you know, you talk about Kareem and Oscar and all those guys we learned from.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of mutual respect between you two, but did it ever kind of go over the top during a game when, you know, tempers started to get heated and everything else like that? Or was it always a level of respect? I mean, because, with Jordan, look, like he wants to win. If he has to throw that friendship out to win that game, he'll do it.
Well, it wasn't no friends on the floor. We competed. It wasn't about friends. We didn't look at each other as friends. We was trying to take each other's head off, you know? And so, no, it was not moments where we felt like, hey, man, how you doing? And, you know, hope you have a good game. No, it was none of that. You know, we competed. We were friends when we left the court, but on the court, we didn't know each other. That's just the way it was.
Right, because in that 87-88 season, you had your highest average of your career, 30.7 for the Hawks, but then Jordan had 35.
I could never catch him on the scoring title, man. I won the scoring title once, and I chased him for 4 more years. And I found out, I'm like, man, I'm not chasing this guy anymore. I mean, the guy at one point was averaging 34, 35. I mean, come on. You ain't catching that.
Well, that next year, 88, the slam dunk contest, you and Jordan started going at it. And ultimately, what do you think happened? Because this is one of these kind of strongly contested kind of dunk contests.
We were in Chicago.
Right.
That's what happened. You know? That was the issue, you know.
Right, because your first 2 dunks, you got 50. And then on your third dunk, you got a 45.
It's one of my best dunks. And when I got a 45, I looked up, I was like, uh-oh. You know what's coming next, you know. Actually, he had 2 attempts at the free throw line. He missed the first. I don't know if you remember that.
Right.
And I thought the dunk contest was over. And they're like, no, he got 1 more. And so that was the famous free throw line dunk that he attempted twice.
When you saw him do the free throw dunk, what did you think?
Oh, that's a long way. First of all, it's a great dunk. I mean, that's a distance, you know, away from the goal. But, you know, back then you didn't get too many chances to miss. And I think getting that reprieve at the end, you know, it got him over the hump.
Have you ever tried to dunk from the free throw line?
Yeah, in high school, college. But, you know, I became a 2-foot jumper by accident in the pros. And I found that it gives you more balance and more height and, more important, more control. So I started doing it all the time.
Well, right. I guess you and Jordan talked afterwards at one point, and he said, hey, you know, you probably won. You know it, I know it, but hey, you in Chicago. What can I tell you?
That's exactly what he said. That's exactly what he said. But you know what thing about Mike? No matter who won, the fans got their money's worth. And so we are 2 guys. We don't talk about it. Only time we've ever mentioned it, and it's probably 30 years later, he was at a restaurant. He was sitting down eating, and I walked up, said hello, and he said, hey, man, you know you won that dunk contest. I said, hey, how you doing, Mike? You know, I forgot about the dunk contest, but it shows you the mutual respect we have for one another. We never talked. It was an unspoken thing. We both knew.
Well, that next year, 89, you actually won the dunk contest.
Yeah, I think it was against Kenny Smith. I believe it was.
Yeah, you beat out Kenny Smith.
Yeah. It wasn't. It was special, but it wasn't as special as that one. Even in a loss, that was even more special.
Right, because Jordan wasn't there that year, right?
No, he wasn't there that year.
Exactly. And in that year, 89, you guys kind of struggled at the Hawks.
Yeah, we have a tough year, a lot of injuries that we were dealing with. So that year, I remember I had to play both forwards, power forward and small forward. I hated to play power forward, especially in that era, because power forwards they were grown men, lifting weights and throwing barrels out of saloons and stuff like that, stupid stuff they were doing. And so I didn't want to fight with those guys. But we had too many of our big guys hurt.
Okay, then in 1990, you guys actually had a solid year and you got back to the playoffs again. You guys played the Pistons. What happened there?
Oh, man, that Piston team, that was the rise of that Pistons team when they ultimately got to the championship seasons. They started to get the Rodmans. They started to get the Aguirres. They had Adrian Dantley, for a few years. So they were a very, very tough team to beat because now they started to build that personality of the bad boys, And I remember playing against them, and that series was brutal because we beat each other to death. Because our team, we had big guys who would like to play that way, the physical bang, hit you, going to the basket. So there was a mutual respect between the two teams, but we did not like each other.
Right. You mentioned that you probably still hate Bill Laimbeer to this day.
You know what? I hated him as a player. But the craziest thing is, if you talk to Bill Laimbeer away from the court, he's the nicest guy you ever want to meet. I mean, he act like he never hit you like 2 nights before, He really is the really cool guy. I just hated him when I had to play against him because he would do something crazy. Snatch you out of the air, hit you, all kind of crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Bill Laimbeer had his own video game called Bill Laimbeer's Full Contact Basketball, where it was like a combination fighting game and basketball game. Like, it was that ridiculous with him.
Well, the thing that whole thing was about making you earn everything you got, especially when you come to the paint. If you get 2, you're going to earn it. Most time, their whole motto was send them to the free throw line. Don't give them any. We even, at Atlanta, we had a no layup rule. Guy comes to the hole, send him to the free throw line. No easy shots. But Detroit took it to another level. But it worked for him. It got him 2 championships.
Right. What do you think was the dirtiest thing that Laimbeer did to you during a game?
I think the dirty thing he did, it was him and Mahorn, where I got hit right below my neck and then the small of my back, and I went like they snatched you out of the air. And I remember, I was like, I wasn't hurt, but I was shocked. I said, they didn't just snatch me out of the air. And I jumped up and I just started swinging. And I came to my sense really, really quick because those guys are 6'10" and 6'11". So I got real nervous. And so by that time I had Tree Rollins walk up on one side, Dan Ranford walk on the other side. And the closer they got to Bill Laimbeer and Mahorn, the braver I got. But that's why in those days you had to have enforcers. We had Roundfield and Tree, Kevin Willis. So we had a lot of guys that they lived for that kind of stuff. For them, it was enjoyable. All I was trying to do is get to the basket, get us a win, and get out of there.
I was talking to John Sally, my man, on my way here. And I'm like, I'm about to interview Dominique Wilkins. What should I ask him? And he sent me this picture right here.
Is that me dunking on him or him dunking on me? Which one is that?
That looks like him dunking on you.
Hey, look, man, anybody ever tell you they've never been dunked on is lying. Everybody's been dunked on before.
Right.
And if you look at that, too, that was on the other side of the basket, though, okay? So he probably got there before I had the chance to really jump. Tell him I said that, too.
I know. He's going to see it. He's going to see it. Well, in 1991, you scored your 20,000th point, becoming the 16th player to ever do that. How did that feel to have that many points under your belt?
Oh, man, again, that doesn't immortalize you with the greatest players. You know, when you reach that type of goal in your career, 20,000 points is a lot of points. It's a lot of guys have gone through the league. To reach 20,000 is amazing. You look at some of the heights these guys are going to now. LeBron now is all-time leading scorer in history. I mean, anytime you score 20,000 points, man, you put in a body of work.
Well, later on that year, you end up actually rupturing your Achilles tendon.
Mm-hmm.
Now, back then, that was career-ending, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you ripped your Achilles tendon, you might as well look for a new job.
Well, they told me my career was over. They said I was pretty much done. And they said if I did come back, that I would be half of what I was.
Right.
So I had to hear all that negative, talk through the press, to different people. And so I said, I'll be back. And I'm going to be better than ever. And I got the sarcastic pats on the back. But I remember getting to the gym. I worked out twice a day, every day for 9 months. And I wanted to be even more fundamentally sound. So I didn't want to just play the game in the air. I wanted to play on the ground too. So the year I came back, I remember my first practice and I hit the ground really hard and I grabbed my ankle, but I didn't have any pain. I said, you know what? If this is going to go, it's going to go on my terms. I'm going all out. And the first game back was against the New York Knicks and I scored 30. And that's when I said to myself, I'm back. And I averaged 30 points a game that year.
I mean, when you actually rip your tendon, though, during a game, how painful was it?
Well, it was no contact at all. I was literally trotting down the court, and I just heard something pop. And I turned around, and I said, who kicked me? There was nobody behind me, and my foot, I could see the top of my foot. It was straight in the air. And I remember the pain rushed up my whole right side, and I fell flat on my face. And I did say at that point, I said, I'm probably done. And but I had to get over the shock of it. And once I got over the shock of it, I got right back in the gym. Even when I had a cast on, I was in the gym working out.
I mean, yeah, you're 31 years old at the time, and you still have a career ahead of you. I mean, how did it feel to think that you're done right at that very moment?
Because back in that particular injury was considered a career-ending injury that you couldn't come back from, because a lot of people who've had that injury didn't come back. And I was the only one in history to this day to come back after a year and play at the same level or better than when he left. So that was the hard work I put in.
I mean, going through that yourself, when you saw Kobe rip his Achilles and actually finish off part of the game with a ripped Achilles tendon, I mean, how crazy is that?
Well, his was a lot different because it was a partial tear, because if you have a complete tear, there's no way you can walk. No way you can walk. And but it shows you heroic of a moment that he had when he finished the game, went and shot his free throws. And Kobe and I talked about his injury when he was hurt. And so a lot of these guys, because you had to put the competitiveness aside and you do what you can to help, another guy to get back at the level that he once left. So there's many guys, Durant, I've talked to, Klay Thompson, all those guys who ruptured their Achilles, we all had conversations.
Yeah, I remember during the finals when Kevin Durant had the messed up Achilles and then he tried to go back in the game and he ended up messing it up even further.
Well, I think it was diagnosed wrong from what we heard on television. It was considered a calf injury, but I knew when he looked behind him, I knew what it was. I knew he tore his Achilles. And it was amazing that he was able to walk off the floor. It really was.
Yeah. Okay, so 1992, like you mentioned, you came back from your operation and you averaged almost 30 points a game.
Yeah.
After injury, which kind of blew everyone's mind away. And on December 8th of that year, you actually set an NBA record. You made the most free throws without a miss in a game, 23 in a row against the Bulls.
Yeah, and I remember that game. That was a game, I think I scored 40-something in that game, 42 or something like that in the game, and 23 out of 23 free throws. And that record stood for a very, very long time to recently James Harden went 24 out of 24. And I'm surprised it lasted that long because of, the way the game is called, that guys don't get to the line. And the way they got to the line a lot more especially during that team, even up to now, guys get to the free throw line a lot.
Right. I mean, that season was going well, then you actually fractured your ring finger. And then you had to sit out some games.
Yeah.
And by the end of the season, you had 29.9 scoring average, right behind Jordan's 32.6.
No, right?
Once again.
Hey, at that time, it wasn't about me even catching him. I just wanted to show people that I was back and it's at the same level or better than I left it. So I think I proved that point.
Okay, so you had this long career with Atlanta, and then in 1994, in the middle of the season, you get traded to the Clippers. What exactly happened? Like, what triggered that trade?
Money. Because we were leading the Eastern Conference, and I was having one of the best seasons of my career, and they made a trade because I was a free agent at that in the year. So that's what it was about, not paying me the money they promised. And so how do you do that? Well, you trade a guy. And it probably never happened in NBA history where a team is leading the Eastern Conference and players playing the best of his ability, course of a career in that year. And they make a trade like that, man, that's unheard of.
Right. I mean, you left Atlanta as the all-time leading scorer with 23,292 points. But now you're playing for the Clippers, who at that time was owned by Donald Sterling, who later on, as everyone knows, lost the team over some racist phone calls. Now, I've heard some weird stuff about Donald Sterling. You would just kind of walk into the locker room and just stare at a bunch of the players and leave. And, and of course, there's all the racist kind of undertones of everything. Did anything kind of, bother you playing for Sterling?
A lot of things.
Okay.
One of the things I remember at the end of the year, playing against San Antonio Spurs, and Bob Weiss came in the locker room. He said, look, I want y'all to get alarmed, but I've been told to take all you guys out after the first 4 minutes of the first quarter. And I'm like, why? He said, Donald Sterling wanted to see David Robinson keep the scoring title in the West. He didn't want Shaquille to get it in the East. I said, last time I checked, neither guy played on our team. Who cares? And so it took us out with 4 minutes to go in the game. To start of the game. And David Robinson had 71.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah. Crazy.
We had a birthday party for a little kid, one of the wives on our team, and they rolled a cake out and the naked woman jumps out of the cake. Like, this man is crazy. Yes. Crazy.
Okay. When you heard the racist phone calls and when he lost his team, what did you think?
When you don't know all the details, it's hard to really comment on what your thoughts are. But at the end of the day, whatever happened in that situation wasn't very smart, I think he got caught up, in the moment with the young lady and, obviously some things she needed and wanted and some things he needed and wanted as well. And it just didn't work out that way in the end. So I think he did pretty well, though, when he sold his team.
Yeah.
He did pretty well.
But he didn't want to sell the team, though. That's the whole thing. Yeah. I mean, he wanted to keep it.
Well, it's a status purpose. It's for status
of
purpose
course,
for him.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
He didn't need the money, that's for sure.
Right.
But hey.
He was already wealthy. Yeah.
But at that time, the NBA had to do something, So it was the right thing to do.
Well, on March 25th of that year, you actually played Atlanta, in your Clippers uniform. You actually made 36 points, 10 rebounds against your old team. How did that feel, being such an Atlanta guy all those years?
Actually, I was really jacked going into the game. After being traded, coming back weeks later, playing against the Hawks, I was so jacked up that I couldn't do anything right in the first half. I had 4 points at halftime. And I remember coming back in the locker room, and I said, okay, you got to settle down, just settle down. And I said to Mark Jackson, I said, Mark, give me the ball, and you guys get the hell out of the way. I remember that vividly. And actually, I scored 34 points in the second half, and I had 10 rebounds in the second half. So I ended up with 12 rebounds and 38 points in that game. Crazy. I just got on a roll in that second half, but I wasn't going to be denied that game, not in front of those fans.
Okay, so you're playing for the Clippers, and then you get traded to the Celtics.
Actually, I was a free agent. I
Right.
decided I didn't want to go back to the Clippers because it was a mess over there at that time. And so going to the Celtics was a class organization, and I was received very well. And I'm going to tell you the reason why I went to the Celtics is Red Auerbach. It came to Toronto. I was on Dream Team 2. And he said, look, you can go anywhere you want, but I would love to see you in the Celtics uniform, which I thought in a million years I would never be in a Celtics uniform, but it was because of red and how you turn red down. And so that's the reason why I went to Celtics.
Right. I mean, the Celtics themselves are a legendary team. But Boston, you've heard some stuff about it. You know what I mean? Like I've heard a lot of players, that I've interviewed, like Gilbert Arenas, would tell me about the racist stuff that they would get yelled at, by Celtics fans.
I'm gonna tell you something, man. When you're in that arena, especially during those times, anything and everything goes. And nobody cared. People said what they want. But living in Boston, I lived in Boston 5 years after I retired. So it was I really liked it a lot. I lived out in the suburbs, a place called Dover, Mass, out near Wellesley. And I was treated very well, very well. And so for me, I didn't see any of that personally.
Right. And being on the team, you guys made it to the playoffs and you lost to the Orlando Magic. How did that feel?
We had them too, by the way. But you know what? They were a young team. They had Penny Hardaway, they had Shaquille O'Neal and guys like that on that team, Nick Anderson. They were a good young team. And we had some missing pieces. We were pretty good, but we had some missing pieces. But that was the emergence of Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway.
What was it like playing against a young Shaq that year?
Oh, he was an energetic young man. I mean, physical, athletic, off the charts, man, for a guy that big. And just was a fun guy to play against. I was kind of a mentor to him, coming in the league when he was in college, LSU, when I first met him. So, we had a pretty cool friendship.
Yeah, man, I love Shaq. Me and him talk sometimes, man.
He's a great guy. Great guy.
Oh, yeah. One of the hardest working people, that I know. How many jobs does he have?
Well, he's the James Brown of basketball. The hardest working man in show business. He's doing everything.
Everything, getting every dollar.
Hey, I ain't mad at him. Go for it.
Yep. And you actually scored the final point at the old Boston Garden before it closed down.
No, I never knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. What was it like being on the Dream Team too?
Oh, it was great, man. You're playing with all those great players. You didn't have to work as hard because everybody is as good as you are. And in some cases, better, especially as an aging young man. Well, I won't say young man, but an aging man coming into that dream team. I was the elder statesman on that dream team, but that was a wonderful group of guys to play with.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Shaq was on the team.
Oh, you had Shaq, you had Lonzo Mourning, you had Sean Kemp, Derek Coleman, you had Joe Dumars, Mark Price, Marley, Reggie Miller. So we had some players. Larry Johnson.
Larry Johnson, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a hell of a team.
Yeah.
It was a hell of a team.
We had a squad.
Yep. Okay, so you have your season with the Celtics, and then in 1995, you left the NBA, and you went to Greece. Back then, the European League wasn't what it is today. So what led you to actually leave the NBA and go to Greece?
Well, I was, again, in a situation when I was with the Celtics, I was playing under Chris Ford. He was our coach. And it was an opportunity. It was the lockout year, actually. It was the lockout. And so the Greek team asked me would I come over for a vacation and visit. I went over there and visit, and it was just one of the most breathtaking moments I've ever had as a player, to be treated the way I was treated in Greece. They gave you the world. And so I was like, how can I turn this down? And I was the highest paid guy in Europe at that time. I mean, soccer or basketball. So it was just an offer I couldn't refuse.
Well, right, because you had 2 years left on your Celtics contract, but you had a buyout option.
Right.
So They basically bought out your contract and gave you $7 million for 2 years, which is $3.5 million a year, which, like you said, was the highest paid athlete in all of Europe, more than the soccer players.
Yeah. I made more than that. I mean, it took a lot for me to leave, the NBA, but they took care of it. And you don't pay for anything, especially in those days. Everything is taken care of.
Well, yeah, I heard the house they put you in had like gold toilets.
Something like that. Something like that. It had kitchen on every four floors, all marble, 14 karat gold. It was a stupid house.
Right. So now you're playing for Greece, but the fans over there are different than the fans over here.
Yeah.
And what are they like throwing coins at you like when you first got on the court?
Well, the Greek fans is the most fanatical fans in the world. I mean, they are uncontrollable. But yeah, what they do, they take coins before the game and they throw them on the floor. And so if you notice all the European courts and the benches where the shields go up and out, so when the coins hit it, it don't hurt the players. And this goes on for like 3 or 4 minutes. This is a tradition. And so the first time I was there, I got hit with a coin in the layup line and I got cut. And I remember going to the locker room. I said, I'm not coming back out. They said, no, it's okay. It's okay. It's tradition. I said, I'm bleeding. This ain't no tradition, but I ended up going back out and you got used to it. So, after a while, it didn't really faze me as much because like I said, it only lasts for a few minutes. You sit there on the bench and you let, the fans do their thing and then you start the game.
Well, when you got over there, originally it wasn't really working out. I think you mentioned that you were being treated like a dog by the coach.
Well, a lot of Yugoslavian coaches over there are very tough. They're really, really tough. And we had a coach, I think his name, Malikovic, I forget his name. And he used to make us jump rope, right? Which is no problem. But when you got to jump rope sideways and go down the court and back, jump rope, I said, no, I'm not doing that. I said, that's an accident waiting to happen. So I remember we win our first 12 or 13 games. And I remember the coach go to one of our players and he said, Dominique is asshole, but we need him. So he didn't complain too much because we was winning. We ended up winning the European Championship that year.
Right. But didn't you get fined $50,000 because they said you were making too many trips back home?
Yeah, my father passed and I would have paid more, because that's my family. But just the crazy thing is if you had a death in the family, they didn't really care, because I said, look, I'm going, my grandmother and my dad passed. And I had to sneak out like at 3 o'clock in the morning to get a flight out of there, and you couldn't tell them because they will hold your passport, So yeah, there's a couple of times I snuck out. So yeah, they telling the truth about that one, but there's a reason for it.
Okay. Well, that next year when you were in the EuroLeague Final Four, I mean, you had a solid year, but they ended up not winning. And then when it came time for them to pay up, it became an issue.
Well, I was hurt, so I didn't play in that final game because I was hurt. And so they said, go back to your United States, come back next year, we start this all over again. And then, so when I got there, they said, by the way, we're not paying. I'm like, oh, okay. I said, you're paying if you want to or not, because you forgot you put all the money in the U.S. bank, so I can go take it over. So I ended up getting paid, but the fact that they threatened you with that it was amazing because they did it on a regular basis, not just to me, to a lot of players.
Well, right. I mean, you mentioned you had the money in your bank account in the U.S., but they actually filed a lawsuit that prevented you from taking like $4 million out, right?
They lost that lawsuit.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, but how upsetting was that? You got $4 million sitting in your bank account and suddenly you're told you can't take it out.
They thought that the same rules applied here in the States, and it didn't. And it really wasn't, the case wasn't even long. I mean, it may have lasted a week, And like line of credit is what it is, line of credit. That's in your name. You can do whatever you want. But they tried, but it didn't work.
Okay. And after that, you went back to the NBA again.
Yes.
What was that like?
Yeah. I went to San Antonio, I think it was, when I came back. And It was fun. I played under Popovich. As a matter of fact, that was his coaching debut that year. I was with San Antonio. And I knew after that year, probably, I was going to retire, but I ended up playing, I think, another year or so in the NBA with Orlando Magic. But I was pretty much, I didn't enjoy it at the level I once did because it wasn't, at that point, it wasn't about winning. It was about nurturing and pacifying these young guys that's coming in at that time. So I said, you know what, it's time for me to retire.
Well, that year they had the NBA 50, and you were not included in that.
It was a joke, because at that time I was 7th all-time leading scorer in history.
Right.
And so I'm like, what? But, life comes full circle. So, top 75. And then you see some of the rankings. It's, where I'm ranked. I'm ranked between 20 and 35. So I'm like, well, how did I miss the top 50? But it doesn't really matter at this point. You're part of 75 greatest players ever played. So for me, and I'm cool with that.
Well, after playing for the Spurs, you went back to Europe again, and you played for Bologna for a year in Italy. Why go back to Europe again after going through the nonsense?
Well, I liked Europe. I liked Europe, and it was different systems, and different countries. So for me, it was really nice going to Italy because I love the culture. They treated you very well there. It's just that I was ready to come back to the NBA and retire, after that year. But I had a good time in Italy.
Right, because that next year, 98, you came back and you played for the Magic. And you actually played with your brother.
Right. Well, I wanted to play 1 year with him before I retired. And so we retired at the same time, actually.
When you played your final game for the Magic, your final NBA game, did you know that was going to be your final game?
Yes, I knew it was. I mean, I was pretty much done after that because, again, it was, the Magic was going through some changes themselves with, players and different things like that. And it was just something I just didn't want to do for another year. So I made the decision after that season I was going to retire.
Do you remember the final seconds in your final game when you were like, okay, this is really going to be it?
Tell you the truth? No, I don't even remember that. I just remember at the beginning of that year, I said, I'm going to have fun with my brother. If I play a lot, fine. If I don't, fine. It's just going to be my last hurrah.
And when you look at the era that you played, and you played with 103-degree temperature, 2 dislocated fingers, sprained ankles, is there a level of toughness that you guys had that's different than today, or is it about the same? That
toughness was like embedded in you in those days. I didn't believe in taking nights off. And if you look at my career, barring any injuries, major injuries, I played 82 games, 82, 81, 79, 78. I felt like if I didn't play, I let the team down, I let myself down, I let the organization down. So I played with, like you said, dislocated fingers, broken hand, temperature of 103, and I didn't think twice about it.
I mean, being one of the great players without any rings, did that bother you at all? That you never have a finals?
No, not at all. Because if you look at the great players that played in this game and all the great players who hasn't won a ring, you look at Karl Malone and Stockton, you look at Barkley, you look at Ewing. I mean, I can go down the line, guys who are super players. Allen Iverson, guys, super players that never won. Does that diminish their greatness? No. Just one team get a chance to win it every year.
I mean, but when you look at the Hawks as an organization, they won their last finals in 1958, before you and I were ever born. The last time they went to the finals was 1961. They have the second longest drought of winning a championship next to the Sacramento Kings. And there's been great teams along the way. It's not like there hasn't been incredible players, incredible coaches. Why do you think?
Eastern Conference, man, has been a great conference for a long time, It's just recently where the West is swung back to the West. But the Eastern Conference, man, is brutal with talent and great teams, during that time. But, our hopes right now with our team is to finally put a team on the floor that can win a championship. That's our goal right now. And our ownership is definitely putting all the pieces in place to give us that opportunity.
Well, in 2001, you got your jersey retired, number 21. One of 5 players who have been had their jerseys retired by the Hawks. How did that feel?
It was great because when my jersey got retired, it was only two other jerseys that were retired. It was Bob Pettit and Lou Hudson. And so I was the third jersey to be retired in that building. And that was a special moment because I learned a lot from Lou Hudson and Bob Pettit, who's absolutely a great friend of mine and I have a lot of respect for. So to be up there with those two guys was special.
Well, and then in 2004, you actually joined the Hawks again as the vice president of basketball.
Mm-hmm.
What led up to you actually joining in that regard?
Well, it's something I prepared for before I retired from basketball that I was told that, if you ever want to come back to the Hawks, you always have a job here. So I've been there since the day I retired and just in different roles. And now being vice president, special advisor to our CEO, it's been a wonderful compliment to what I've already done up to this point.
I mean, in that position, what do you think is your greatest accomplishment?
Well, it's just giving advice and being around special people that I had a long history with, like the Steve Koonens and Andrew Salzman and guys like that, and the late Mike Guerin, who was one of our owners, and his son. And now it's Tony Ressler and his family ownership group. I mean, there's special relationships that you build over time. And I tell you, the Ressler family, I have so much respect for it. And especially for Jamie Gertz and her husband, Tony Ressler, has done a wonderful job at really putting the right pieces in place for our franchise, not just on the floor, but off the floor.
Well, in 2006, you got inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Anytime you can be immortalized in that way, it shows you how far you've come from that little kid in the projects to now being a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players to ever play. I mean, it's hard to really wrap your head around how special that is, because that's something no one can ever take from you.
Right, because they actually did a poll for a Mount Rushmore of Atlanta athletes. Hank Aaron, Tom Glavine, Chipper Jones, and you.
That's a great group to be a part of, right?
Right.
Hank Aaron is one of the big reasons, too, why I was able to come back to Atlanta. And he told Ted Turner, if you can get this guy to Utah, do it by any means necessary. He's going to change the franchise. So Hank Aaron is one of the instrumental pieces that got me here. Yeah.
Wow, I never knew that. Yeah. Hank Aaron, who doesn't even play the same sport that you play.
But it was the credibility and the respect that he had in the city. Yeah. Everybody loved Hank. I was able to meet with Hank and be around Hank, early in my career. And, a lot of stuff that I learned from Hank.
In 2011, a situation happened with a guy named Rashawn Michael.
Oh, you going to go there, right? You're going to go there.
I looked into the story, and it's just like the whole thing's just nonsensical to me. Like, what exactly happened? He was just a guy who I think he had too much to drink or whatever. I don't know what was going on with him. And he made threatening advances to me while I was on the floor. I didn't even see him. The security saw him. And he was just yelling and screaming. And he made, threatening advances toward me. It wasn't the right thing to do on his part. That didn't end up well. Right. Was it over? Because he made suits, right?
Yeah.
Was it over? He claimed that you owed him some money for some suits?
His MO is like, he'll make you a suit and send it to you, right? For free to get your business. And then he send you 6 more. Then he charge you for it. I'm like, what? I said, nah, I didn't order these. And of course he took them back and it's no problem. We'd love to get your business. And this like 4 or 5 years later, because I didn't talk to this guy. 4 or 5 years later, he just comes to a game, and I guess he had a little too much to drink, and he got brave and started saying crazy stuff.
Right, I saw a picture. He had a real shiner of a black eye that day.
That's something that could have been avoided, but, you got to protect yourself over people who act crazy.
Right. And wasn't he up on NCAA bribery charges, like later on?
That's what I heard. I mean, I don't know the details, but yeah, I've read a lot of that stuff where there was some stuff that they went through with the NCAA and all that, but I try not to think about him.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, in 2014, there was some news that you were actually trying to buy the Atlanta Hawks.
Well, there's always, talks and rumors that come up when, especially when a franchise is getting ready to sell. Of course, I've been here longer than anyone else. So to be a part of that, everybody want to be a part of ownership. I mean, I'd be lying if I said anything else. But I've always been taken care of the right way in the city. And so it started with our fans who've always taken care of me, and new ownership has really embraced me. So I have no complaints.
What was the ticket price back then? If you were to actually buy it?
The ticket price in them days wasn't what it is now. You're talking $200-300 million now, and they're over $2-4 billion now. So
Right.
It's a billionaire's playground.
I mean, yeah. I mean, look at Magic Johnson these days.
Yeah. I mean, he's all over the place too. A lot like Shaq. I mean, these guys are everywhere doing some great stuff, and I applaud all the stuff that they're doing. They're doing great stuff.
Well, you didn't get to buy the team, but that next year they actually unveiled a statue of you in front of the Phillips Arena, which is now the State Farm Arena. It's one thing, I mean, look, the Hall of Fame and the accolades, but to actually have a statue of yourself in front of the arena that you played in, how was that experience to you?
Oh, man. It's hard to put in words, even to this day, what that statue means to me and my family. Again, it puts you in a position of appreciation, but it was really the city of Atlanta, along with the organization, who all came together and decided that this needs to be done. And oftentimes I drive by there, still in awe of it, even though it's 6 years later now, something like that. Yeah, 6-7 years later. Yeah.
Congrats, man.
Oh,
Congrats.
thank you.
I know Sylvester Stallone had a statue of himself in his own house, but to actually have it in a public arena like that is something, man.
Yeah, it's special. It's special. And I can't tell you how much to this day I really respect and appreciate what they've done for me here in the city. So now, my son, who's a upcoming, young basketball star, get a chance to go down and see those things and have something to inspire to become. So, and he's going to be something, by the way. And you're going to hear from Jacob Wilkins. He's pretty special.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats. Well, in 2020, Kobe Bryant dies. And we had talked about that you guys had a relationship with him leading up to this. When you heard the news, what did you think?
I was going to the game, actually. I remember my son called me. He said, he's gone. I like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? He said, Kobe, he's gone. I like, don't play like that, man. He said, no, Dad, he's gone. And I remember getting off the phone. I called down the office and I said, did y'all hear this news with Kobe? And they say it's true. It just happened. And I pulled the car over on I-20. I remember this like it was yesterday. And I sat there for an hour. I couldn't drive, because I'm like, I just talked to him 2 weeks ago, and it's almost like it was like yesterday. And so, yeah, that was devastating. Kobe was he was kind of the last of our kind, that guy that always played no matter what. And I told him that at his last game in Atlanta. And so I think about all those things, the conversation we had, and it's still surreal that he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, it actually happened down the street from my house in Calabasas when I heard the news. And me and a bunch of the other fans were walking to we couldn't get to the crash site, of course. But, as far as we could all go, we were all gathering and people were wearing their Kobe jerseys and people were crying. And it was a sad day, especially in L.A. Especially in LA.
And to this day, people, it's hard for people to accept, And again, when the last time I talked to him personally with him and his daughter in Brooklyn, and he was bragging to his daughter about my career, and it blew me away. And I remember that conversation, man. And I was like, that is so nice that, he talked about me to his daughter like that and what I was. So it was, and how much a fan he was. So it was, and then, 2 weeks later, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've said that Kobe's the closest thing you've ever seen to Michael Jordan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, that killer instinct, the style, his ability to push everybody around him to that next level. Yeah, for sure.
Well, in 2021, even though you were snubbed for NBA 50, you made the NBA 75. How did it feel to be in a room full of legends like that?
Well, the NBA called me. They said, look, what you getting now you deserve it and more because it wasn't done right the first time. So for me, that acknowledgement of it was amazing. And so, yeah, I mean, that was a special moment to be in that circle with all those guys. Then you had all the forwards. I remember sitting there with Bob Pettit and Carmelo and Barkley, and all of us was in like the same area. And we was all like, wow, this is surreal. It was like we like kids in the candy store.
Right, because I guess you and Carmelo were talking, and you're talking about how both of you came from Baltimore to this.
Yeah. And he said, man, we both said, man, we a long way from Baltimore, huh, man? He said, this is unbelievable. If we know there's the greatest forwards to ever play this game, it's just crazy.
Well, that same year, there was an incident at an Atlanta restaurant. What exactly happened?
Well, the problem was the restaurants that I went to, you know, when I went in with a friend of mine, and we wanted to eat outside. And I was dressed better than every guy in there at that time. And they said that, sorry, we can't serve you. I was like, what? And they said, you have track pants on. Like, what? I said, what is your definition of track pants? They said, we don't care. We just can't seat you. And they went back and forth. There's nobody sitting outside. And even if I want to sit inside, it shouldn't have been a problem. But it's two white gentlemen walk up beside me. They had shorts on and button-down shirts and sandals. And she said, excuse me, sirs, we'll seat you in a minute. Let us finish talking here. And they refused to let me sit down and have lunch. And that was their big mistake. You know, because first of all, they judged me wrongly. The attire that they thought I had on to what they was looking at. And people like that should never be in business, ever. Because people spend their hard-earned money to come and patronize your establishment, and you treat them that way. And it was crazy. This is like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you know. So to say I would never eat at that place ever again is an understatement. But it's wrong. Right. And I think to me, I hope they shut down sometime. So if they're not shut down already, they need to be.
Right. The restaurant you're talking about is called La Bibliothèque,
something like that. I don't like the name.
In Buckhead. Right. And they issued a public apology, but it means
nothing. It means nothing because you're just trying to cover your butt. You haven't not admitted what you've done to other people you've done that to. I can stand on my own TV, so it doesn't matter. But how about the people who can't speak for themselves at a platform that bring them some justice, right? And so, yeah, I got all kind of apologies and wanted to get private apologies. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do a private apology. No one, so you give me a private apology, no one hears it. So I said, no, that's okay. Keep your apologies. But it's just, you shouldn't have establishments like that in any city because it's just wrong. I mean, I'm spending my money to eat at your place and I can't eat. Okay.
I mean, had you experienced anything like that before in Atlanta? Because, I mean, Atlanta,
listen,
you know, for example.
I've been to better restaurants in Atlanta. Many, many, many restaurants, from the Chops to the Bones to the Lobster Bars to, you know, to Rap and Steak. I've been to all those places and they treat you like family. You know, here's a restaurant come from where I don't know where they come from. And you bring a really skewed mentality to a city that's more diverse than that, you know. And so the fact that they still are up and running is a mystery. Because people like that shouldn't be in business.
I agree. Last year, you were live on the air with your co-host, Bob Rathbun.
Yes.
And he had a seizure on TV.
Yeah, fortunately, you know, we were able to get him to the hospital and things worked out. He's, you know, stayed away from calling the games for a few games, but more importantly, his health improved. He's doing great. And I'm happy to say my partner is still around. We can still do games together. So he had a lot of people around him who reacted the right way to make sure that he was okay.
Yeah, I just watched the video this morning. That looked terrifying. from my point of
And
view.
I was sitting right next to him, and I didn't know what was going on. So, when I realized what was going on, I jumped off the air to help him. And thank goodness we had people around that saw it, and we got him the help he needs. So he's doing great, healthy, and so couldn't be more happy.
What'd you think of The Last Dance?
I never watched it
You never watched it.
because we lived it. I knew all.
Okay.
We lived it. So, we competed. So it was nothing that surprised me about The Last Dance and when people were talking about it. So, we knew what Michael was. We knew what the Bulls was. They knew everybody knew who each other was. So we saw it firsthand. So we didn't, seeing it on TV didn't change our vision of what we thought.
I mean, when you look at the aftermath of that series, Scottie Pippen has been going at Jordan, saying that he didn't win any rings until Scottie showed up and everything else like that. And you actually defended Jordan with these comments. I mean, when you see Scottie saying stuff like that, what do you think? As someone who played against both of them.
When I hear him saying, I'm saying to myself, what's really going on with Scottie? Because anybody know basketball is like, you don't win those rings without Jordan. Yeah, does Jordan win 6 rings without Scottie? Probably not. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you don't even get in that position without MJ, period. I mean, anybody who knows the game would look like, and anybody who played against Mike, how fierce of a competitor he was. Now, they had great pieces to that Chicago team. They had a great Scottie Pippen. They had Horace Grant. You had Kukoc. You had Kerr and Paxson. You had a great nucleus on that team. So all those pieces.
Rodman.
And everybody accepted their role. Mm-hmm. That was the difference. But Scottie is dealing with something else, man. I don't know what it is. I wish I could tell you.
I mean, the Lars to Pippen, Marcus Jordan thing probably doesn't help.
Sometimes everybody want to be the king, and everybody can't. Like I said, whatever issue that he got going, them two got going. I mean, it really makes no sense. You're talking about 20, 30 years removed. Come on, you got to let go of that stuff, man. Because what are you going to accomplish out of it? Really, what do you get out of it?
I mean, John Sally, one of the things that he always says on my show that gets people upset, as someone who actually played on the Bulls, he said that Scottie Pippen was the most skilled player he's ever played with, not Jordan.
Scottie Pippen is probably the most skilled player I've ever played with.
Really?
Yeah. Skilled. He plays point guard, shooting guard, small forward, big forward, and center. He can guard anybody on the court. He's Dennis Rodman. Can dribble the ball, right-handed, left-handed. The fundamentals are built into his swag.
When you hear him say that, what do you think?
Hey, Scottie was skilled. There's no question about that. Nobody can take Scottie's ability away from him. My only problem is the back. I mean, not even the back and forth, but the kind of the negative undertone that this whole thing has taken. For what? What is Scottie? What are you trying to hoping to get out of this? And but when you talk from a skill level, I don't know of too many people more skilled than Mike. That's just my opinion.
Would you say that Jordan is the most skilled player you've ever played against?
All around skills, yeah. Yeah.
Who else would you put up there in the top 3?
Well, it's a lot of Magic is one I'll put up there. Bird, I'll put up there. Now Bird might have been athletic as Jordan, but from a basketball skill level, them guys was off the charts. Kareem, Moses, Olajuwon, David Robinson. I mean, I can go down the line and name, 50 guys, that was skilled. Kobe, guy that I actually played against. And I tell you another guy that a couple of guys people don't talk about. One is George Iceman Gervin, is one who was a phenomenon, and Bernard King. That's just to name a few. I can go down the line, just guys who played my position, like Adrian Dantley and Alex English and people of that. I mean, it's too many guys.
Recently, you bought a soccer team.
Yes.
Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Most Americans just are not really, keen to soccer on the level that Europe is. What made you as an American buy a soccer team?
It's changing. It's changing.
Okay.
Mark my words, soccer is changing. It's exploding in the U.S. right now. Now with Messi coming over to Miami, the attention that's been put on soccer is exploding. It's exploding. So it was a great opportunity, and I wanted to do it. So I go back and forth to Birmingham and watch the games. And so the 2 games I've been to, we're 2-0. So, we're winning a little bit down there. So it's continued to grow. And we got a beautiful stadium down there, building the state-of-the-art practice facility. So, yeah, it's a fun journey.
I've interviewed a lot of professional athletes, and at some point, most of them say that they had some sort of disaster when it comes to their finances. Trusting somebody, putting their money with a financial advisor who ended up stealing from them, and so forth. Just making overall bad decisions. In terms of your financial history, do you feel like you handled your money well the whole time, or do you think you stumbled a few times?
Well, as young men, we all do stuff that's a little stupid, because you're young, you're enjoying. But as you grow as a young man, you learn how to, you know what, I think I need to put money away here. I need to invest over there. So I've done all of that. And I think the biggest thing I have to do is put too much trust in an agent. Because back in those days, I would say, they would steal from me. And
okay.
So they used to say I was unstable because I fired anyone who took something from me. Oh, he done fired 4 agents. Yep, I'll fire 5th or 6th if you steal from me.
What was the most money an agent has ever actually stolen from you?
Probably like $600,000.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah. Even if it's $100, it's still stealing. It doesn't matter. Yeah. But so when I dealt with those things, I'm like, you got to go. So I'm able to have a really nice life now. So because I was able to do those things. So I have no complaints.
I mean, do you think that the NBA does enough to educate their young players in finances? Because you got these 18, 19, 21-year-olds who are coming up broke, and suddenly millions of dollars is being thrown at them.
I think the NBA has done a fabulous job of putting educational tools in place and opportunities to regulate the agents, and also give them financial tools that they can use to invest in their lives. Now, ultimately, it's up to that individual, what you want to do, because the NBA can't control that, So your financial advisors, as well as, your closest family that wants to see you prosper as the years go on. That's what it comes down to. But that individual have to be smart enough to start to put stuff away for a rainy day.
I mean, yeah. I remember I interviewed Rodman, and he had his financial advisor, Peggy Ann Fulford, who stole millions from him. And she stole from a bunch of athletes. Well, she's in prison right now.
It should stay there. People like that should go to jail for taking someone else's life and putting it in shambles like that for your own benefit. If someone entrusts you and hire you to take care of them in their lives and you take from them, you deserve to spend whatever time you spend in jail.
Yeah, we did an interview with Ricky Williams, who she stole his entire life savings.
I got a letter from the IRS that said I hadn't paid taxes in 3 years. And so I got this letter. I'm thinking to myself, this isn't true. Like my accountant, Peggy, like we've talked about taxes and I know I filed. And so I send the letter to Peggy and we have a conversation, and, she says, oh, you were audited and, they're trying to figure things out. And so I was thinking this is kind of fishy. And so I started talking to my attorney, and he said, this seems kind of fishy. And so, I put them on it, and over the next couple of months came to realize that the FBI was investigating my financial advisor, and that, where I thought I had, upwards of $6-7 million in the bank, that actually I didn't have any money.
Too trusting.
Yeah, it's a shame. And the one thing that I've heard, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but every player I've ever interviewed, and I say, listen, you look at a typical NBA locker room, there's $100 million in that room at any given time, right? If not more. How often do players talk about business decisions, investments, and so forth in this locker room? Every person I talked to said none.
Yeah, and I was going to probably say none, because for those guys, they are more individuals now. So as a team, they don't talk about that kind of stuff. I mean, because that's a personal thing for them. And I understand, you know, as long as you're taking care of your personal well-being, hey, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I don't know though, man. I mean, when I get together with other millionaires, we talk about investments. You know what I mean? Me and Boosie had a long conversation about investing in stocks last time I was in Atlanta a few days ago.
It's
you see what I'm saying? Like, I try to put my homies
it's different,
on to,
it's different in
to
sports,
game.
man. It's different in sports. You know, guys just don't let people get that close to them, you know. Now, back when we were playing, it was a little different. I mean, guys did talk about those things. But now the guys are corporations first, players second. So they keep that close to their circle.
Yeah, I feel you. Final question before I let you go. Who's going to the finals this year and who's winning?
Hawks, man, what do you think? That's my.
Okay, so who are the Hawks going to play this year in the finals?
I don't know. You know what? The East is tough, man. This year, the East got better.
Yeah,
East has gotten better. So it's gonna be a dogfight in the East this year. It's, you know, for me, it's who get out of the gates early and can stay injury free. That's what it's gonna come down to.
Mm-hmm. That's what it is. Dominique Wilkins, man, truly an honor. I've been a longtime fan.
Oh,
congratulations on an epic career and an epic post career.
Oh, thank
you know
you,
what
bro.
I'm saying? Which I think, because, you know, sports is one of these kind of interesting things, man, where, you know, when you look at a typical working person, you know, they start working at 18 years old, they retire at 50, 60 years old. It's not like that in sports.
Nah.
You know, sometimes you only have a year or two.
Yeah. You know, it's the
You see what I'm
shortest career
saying?
on the planet. Sports is the shortest career on the planet. Then you got to find something else
Exactly.
to give you the same type of satisfaction for a longer length of time. So, yeah, so you got to get what you can in that short period and, you know,
Right.
build your little empire.
Exactly. And then afterwards, there's really no roadmap on where to go. I mean,
Right.
yeah, you could get on TV, you could get in with an organization you used to play for, but that's not
I think
guaranteed.
guys today know more about where they need to go as far as when their career is over. If you look at the Steph Currys, you look at the LeBron James and the Carmelo, all these different guys who've been around a long time, they understand what it takes, you know, for life after basketball. They've already set themselves up to do bigger things.
That's what it is. Dominique Wilkins, man, truly an honor and a pleasure. I wish you all the best.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
Peace.